The warning lights flashed red across the transport ship's cockpit as Alex gripped the controls tighter. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he fought to keep the ship stable through the ion storm. Behind him, the alien diplomat Reth clicked his mandibles in what Alex had learned was a sign of deep concern. Main engine failing. The ship's computer announced in its calm voice. Backup systems critical. Hull breach detected in Cargo Bay 3. Alex glanced at the aliens seated in the passenger compartment. Despite their species differences, he could read the fear in Reth's 4 eyes. The diplomat's normally iridescent scales had dulled to a pale gray, a clear sign of distress among his kind. "We need to abandon ship," Alex shouted over the growing rumble of the failing engines. "The escape pods are our only chance." Reth's translator crackled with static as he responded. The other pods were damaged in the storm. Only one remains functional. They looked at each other, both knowing what that meant. Humans and Reth's species had only established diplomatic relations 6 months ago. The peace was fragile. Now they would have to trust each other with their lives. The ship lurched violently, throwing them both against their restraints. Metal screamed as the hull began to tear apart. "No time to argue," Alex said, releasing his harness. "We go together or we die separately." Reth hesitated for only a moment before following Alex to the last escape pod. The small craft was designed for 2 passengers, but barely. They squeezed in, their environment suits scraping against each other as Alex initiated the launch sequence. The pod ejected just as the transport ship's engines exploded. The blast wave caught them, sending their tiny vessel tumbling through space. Alex fought with the controls while Reth worked the navigation system. "There's a planet within range," Reth reported. "Atmosphere present, but," he paused, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Readings suggest highly toxic composition. Better than space." Alex grunted, firing the maneuvering thrusters to stabilize their descent. "Our suits should protect us long enough to figure something out." The pod streaked through the alien atmosphere, friction heating the hull to a cherry red. Warning indicators screamed as the external temperature climbed. Alex's knuckles were white inside his suit gloves as he fought to control their entry angle. "Impact in 30 seconds, Reth announced, his normally formal tone tight with tension. The ground rushed up to meet them, a landscape of strange crystalline formations and glowing vegetation. Alex pulled back on the controls with all his strength, trying to level their descent. They hit hard. The pod bounced once, twice, then skidded across the rocky surface before coming to rest on its side. Inside, both passengers hung limply in their restraints. Alex regained consciousness first, his head throbbing. The pod's viewport was cracked but intact. Through it, he could see an alien landscape bathed in the light of 2 setting suns. Beside him, Reth stirred with a low clicking sound. "Status?" Alex asked, checking his suit's oxygen readings. "Functional," Reth replied after a moment. "But my communications array is damaged. No response from emergency frequencies." Alex checked his own comm system. Nothing but static. They were stranded on an unknown toxic world with limited oxygen supplies, and their only chance of survival was to trust each other. Through the viewport, something large and crystalline moved among the glowing vegetation, then disappeared into the gathering darkness. The toxic atmosphere swirled around them in shades of green and purple as Alex and Reth emerged from their damaged escape pod. Their environment suit's sensors beeped steadily, warning of the deadly cocktail of gases outside. "Oxygen levels at 80%, Reth reported, checking a display on his suit's wrist. "Approximately 16 hours of breathable air remaining." Alex nodded grimly, scanning their surroundings. The landscape was unlike anything he'd seen before. Crystalline formations jutted from the ground like frozen waves, while strange plants pulsed with an inner light. The twin suns had set, leaving them in a twilight painted by the bioluminescent vegetation. "Look," Alex pointed to a patch of glowing blue plants. "The atmospheric readings. They're different near those growths." Reth moved closer, his scientific curiosity overtaking his caution. Fascinating. These organisms appear to be processing the toxic elements in the air, creating small pockets of cleaner atmosphere. Their discovery was interrupted by a sound that made both of them freeze, a high-pitched crystalline chime that seemed to come from all directions at once. "We should move," Reth whispered, his scales shifting to match the dark rocks around them, a defensive reaction of his species. They didn't make it far before they saw it, a creature that seemed to be made of living crystal, its transparent body refracting the light from the glowing plants. It moved on 6 leg-like appendages, each step creating musical tones that echoed across the landscape. Alex and Reth pressed themselves against a rock formation, barely daring to breathe. The creature turned its faceted head toward them, revealing no visible eyes, but dozens of sound-sensitive crystalline protrusions. "It hunts by sound," Reth clicked softly through their suit communicators. "Our movements, our voices, it's tracking them." The creature took a step closer, and another. Alex could see their reflections fractured across its surface. Slowly, he reached down and picked up a small rock. With practiced precision, he threw it far to their left. The rock clattered against the crystal formations, and the creature immediately turned toward the sound, moving away from them with surprising speed. "Quick thinking," Reth acknowledged as they hurried in the opposite direction. "But we need shelter before more arrive." They found it in the form of a cave entrance, partially hidden behind a curtain of glowing vines. Inside, the walls were lined with strange mineral formations that seemed to absorb sound, creating an eerie silence. "The temperature is dropping rapidly," Alex noted, watching his suit's readings. "But at least we're hidden." Reth was examining the cave walls with intense interest. "These mineral formations, they're not natural. Look at the patterns. Too regular, too purposeful." Alex studied where Reth was pointing and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the falling temperature. The walls were indeed covered in geometric patterns that couldn't have formed naturally. "Someone, or something, made this," Alex whispered. "We're not the first intelligent life to visit this planet." A distant crystalline chime echoed from outside, reminding them of the more immediate dangers. With their oxygen supplies steadily depleting, they needed to find a way to survive in this hostile environment. And perhaps, Alex thought, these mysterious patterns held the key to their salvation. As the alien sunrise painted the crystalline landscape in prismatic colors, Alex and Reth made a discovery that changed everything. The toxic atmosphere wasn't a natural occurrence. It was a defense mechanism. "Look at these readings," Reth said, holding up a makeshift sensor he'd crafted from salvaged pod equipment. "The toxins increase whenever large creatures approach. The entire planet is responding to presence." Alex watched as a group of crystal creatures moved through a field of bioluminescent plants. The plants dimmed as the creatures passed, but brightened again in their wake. It's like a biological security system. They had spent hours studying the strange symbiosis between the crystal creatures and the glowing plants. Reth's biological knowledge proved invaluable. The plants convert the creatures' sound vibrations into energy. In return, the creatures protect them from larger predators we haven't seen yet. Alex's engineering background helped them piece together another crucial detail. The geometric patterns in their cave shelter weren't just decorative. They were part of an ancient control system. These markings, Alex traced the patterns with his gloved hand. They're like circuit boards, but organic. The whole planet is one giant engineered ecosystem. Their oxygen supplies were running dangerously low, but Reth had an idea. He carefully collected samples of the bioluminescent plants and began experimenting. By combining Alex's technical skills with his own understanding of biological systems, they discovered something remarkable. "The plants don't just clean the air," Reth explained, excitement making his scales shimmer. "They store oxygen in these nodules. If we can adapt our suit filters." Working together, they'd modified their suit systems to process the stored oxygen from the plants. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it would buy them valuable time. As they worked, they found more evidence of the ancient civilization that had engineered this world. Hidden symbols in the cave walls told a story of a species that had created this hostile environment deliberately, protecting something deeper within the planet. They turned the entire atmosphere into a barrier, Alex said, piecing together the clues. But what were they protecting? Their answer came in an unexpected form. While testing their modified air filters, they noticed that the crystal creatures had begun behaving differently around them. Instead of hunting them, the beings now seemed to be trying to guide them somewhere. They're not just predators, Reth realized. They're guardians, part of the security system. One of the creatures approached them, its crystalline body chiming in a complex pattern. The sound resonated with the geometric patterns on the cave walls, causing them to glow faintly. Look! Alex pointed to where the pattern's light was strongest. There's a passage here we didn't see before. The crystal creature stood waiting, its faceted surface reflecting their images back at them in kaleidoscopic patterns. It was clear they were being invited to follow. Well, Alex said, checking their newly modified oxygen systems, should we see what's so important, it needs an entire planet to guard it. Reth's scales shifted to a color of determination. We've come this far. The answers must lie ahead. Together, human and alien followed their crystalline guide deeper into the planet's mysteries, not knowing that their greatest discovery still awaited them in the hidden valley below. Following the crystalline guide, Alex and Reth descended through winding tunnels until they emerged into something that took their breath away. Before them stretched a vast underground valley, bathed in soft light from enormous bioluminescent structures that hung from the distant ceiling like chandeliers. The air, Alex said in wonder, checking his suit readings. It's breathable. Reth's scales rippled with cautious excitement as he verified the readings on his own suit. A perfect atmospheric composition, maintained in complete isolation from the toxic surface. After carefully testing the atmosphere, they took the risk of removing their helmets. The air was fresh and carried a subtle sweet scent, like morning dew on alien flowers. The valley floor was covered in various forms of life, unlike anything they had seen before. Crystal creatures of all sizes moved with purpose through fields of light-emitting plants, but what caught their attention were the new beings they encountered, creatures that seemed to be made of both crystal and organic matter, moving with clear intelligence. They're evolving, Reth whispered, his scientific mind racing. The crystal beings and organic life are merging into something new. One of these hybrid creatures approached them, its movements deliberate and graceful. Unlike the surface predators, this being radiated a sense of awareness that made both Alex and Reth stand still in amazement. The creature extended a crystalline tendril that glowed with internal light. When it touched the ground, images formed in the air around them, holographic projections showing the valley's history. This isn't just a valley, Alex realized, watching the images. It's a living organism. The whole thing is one interconnected being. The projections showed how the valley had grown over time, how the ancient civilization had built this sanctuary, not as a refuge for themselves, but as an experiment in guided evolution. They had created the toxic atmosphere above to protect this perfect environment where life could evolve without interference. Look, Reth pointed to where the hybrid creatures were gathering. They're trying to show us something else. The beams led them to a structure that seemed to pulse with energy. As they approached, both Alex and Reth felt a strange sensation, as if the valley itself was trying to communicate with them. It's some kind of collective consciousness, Reth said, his scales shifting through colors of wonder and excitement. The whole valley, every creature in it, they're all connected. Alex reached out to touch the structure, and images flooded his mind. Glimpses of the valley's memories, its hopes, its fears. Most urgently, he saw a warning. There's a solar storm coming, he said, pulling his hand back. A big one. If it hits with full force. He looked at Reth with concern. This sanctuary won't survive. The hybrid creatures around them chimed in harmonic tones that resonated with the valley's crystalline structures. They were asking for help, not just to save themselves, but to preserve this unique experiment in evolution that had been running for millennia. Alex and Reth looked at each other, both knowing they had found something far more important than their own rescue. They had discovered a treasure of the galaxy, and now they had to find a way to protect it. The hybrid creatures led Alex and Reth to a chamber deep within the valley, where ancient symbols covered walls of living crystal. As they studied the markings, their meaning slowly became clear through the valley's psychic connection. "These aren't just symbols," Alex said, tracing the glowing patterns. "They're instructions. The civilization that built this place left a manual." Reth's scales flickered with understanding. The toxic atmosphere, the crystal creatures, the evolving hybrids, it was all planned. They created a controlled environment for life to develop in new ways. Through the valley's shared consciousness, they learned the truth. The ancient builders had discovered that life in their galaxy was becoming too uniform, following the same evolutionary patterns everywhere. This valley was their solution, a protected space where life could evolve along completely different paths. The surface defenses aren't just about protection, Reth realized, his scales pulsing with excitement. They're part of a filtering system. Only species that can understand and cooperate with each other can reach this place. Alex's hands moved across a crystalline control panel, images forming in his mind through the psychic link. "That's why the crystal creatures guided us here. We proved ourselves by working together despite our differences." The valley's consciousness shared more urgent information. The approaching solar storm wasn't just a natural event. It was the greatest test the sanctuary's defenses had ever faced. The ancient builders had predicted such storms and created a defense system, but it needed conscious minds to operate it. "Look at this," Alex called, decoding another section of symbols. "The entire valley can generate a protective field, using the crystal formations as focus points. But it needs to be activated manually." Reth studied the instructions with growing concern. The process requires precise timing and coordination. One person at each of the major crystal nodes, working in perfect synchronization. They looked at each other, understanding the challenge. A human and an alien, from species that barely trusted each other, would need to work in complete harmony to save this precious ecosystem. Through the valley's shared mind, they felt the anxiety of thousands of evolving beings. This sanctuary wasn't just a scientific experiment. It was home to an entirely new form of life, one that might hold the key to the galaxy's future evolution. "We have 6 hours before the storm hits," Alex said, checking the ancient monitoring systems. "We need to learn these control sequences perfectly." Reth's scales shifted to a deep blue of determination. "Then we should start now. This place has survived for millennia. We cannot be the ones who let it fall." The hybrid creatures gathered around them, their crystalline bodies humming in harmonious tones. Through the psychic link, they began teaching Alex and Reth the complex sequences that would be needed to activate the defense grid. Time was running out, and the fate of this unique sanctuary rested in their hands. The twin suns cast long shadows across the valley as Alex and Reth took their positions at opposite ends of the sanctuary. Each stood before massive crystal formations that would serve as control nodes for the ancient defense system. "Final systems check." Alex's voice crackled through their restored suit communicators. "How's your status, Reth?" The alien's scales flickered in complex patterns as he connected with his crystal node. "Ready. The hybrid creatures have shown me the sequence. We'll only get one chance at this." The valley's psychic network flooded their minds with information. Precise timing, exact frequencies, the complex dance of energies needed to activate the defensive shield. Around them, crystal creatures of all sizes gathered, their bodies humming in harmony. "Storm approaching," Reth reported, watching the ancient monitoring systems. Initial radiation waves detected. Alex placed his hands on the crystal node, feeling the energy pulse beneath his palms. "Remember, we need perfect synchronization. The moment I start my sequence, I'll begin mine," Reth finished, Like the hybrid creatures showed us, our minds linked through the valley's consciousness. The first waves of the solar storm hit the toxic atmosphere above, making the ground tremble. The bioluminescent plants flickered anxiously, their light pulsing in rhythm with the approaching danger. "Now," Alex called, beginning his sequence. Their hands moved across the crystal surfaces in perfect harmony, guided by both their training and the valley's shared consciousness. The crystal formations began to glow, energy flowing between them in visible streams of light. But something was wrong. The power wasn't building fast enough. "The northern node is out of alignment," Reth called urgently. "The storm's interference is too strong." Alex made a split-second decision. "Keep your sequence going. I'm going to try something." He pressed his body against the crystal node, opening his mind completely to the valley's consciousness. The hybrid creatures gathered around him, adding their own mental energy to his effort. Pain shot through Alex's body as he channeled more power than the system was designed to handle. But through the psychic link, he felt Reth doing the same thing at his position. Human and alien, working as one, became living conduits for the valley's defensive energies. Above them, a shield of crystalline energy began to form, spreading across the sanctuary like a protective dome. The solar storm hit with full force. The toxic atmosphere boiled, the surface crystals screamed, but in the protected valley below, life endured. When it was over, Alex and Reth lay exhausted beside their crystal nodes, their minds still linked through the valley's consciousness. They had done more than just activate an ancient defense system. They had become part of it, further proof that different species could achieve amazing things together. The hybrid creatures gathered around them, their crystalline bodies glowing with gratitude. Through the psychic link, they shared not just thanks, but a gift. Knowledge that would change both their species forever. Dawn broke over the transformed valley as Alex and Reth stood before the ancient communication array they had discovered. After surviving the solar storm, the hybrid creatures had led them to this hidden technology, preserved for millennia beneath the crystal formations. "The power systems are still functional," Alex said, his hands moving across controls that now felt familiar through their psychic connection to the valley. "We can boost the signal enough to reach passing ships." Reth's scales shimmered with a mix of emotions. The valley's consciousness had changed them both, leaving them with understanding that went beyond their original species' limitations. "The real question is, what do we tell them about this place?" The hybrid creatures gathered around them, their crystalline bodies pulsing with gentle light. Through their shared mental link, they showed visions of other valleys like this one, waiting to be awakened across the galaxy. This sanctuary wasn't meant to remain hidden forever. It was a seed, meant to spread its unique form of evolution when the time was right. "We tell them enough to ensure this place is protected," Alex decided, but not enough to risk its exploitation. As they worked on the communication array, they felt the valley's consciousness expanding, preparing for the next phase of its evolution. The toxic atmosphere above had already begun to change, transformed by their actions during the solar storm into a more selective barrier rather than an absolute one. Their rescue signal was answered within hours. A passing survey ship detected their broadcast and altered course to investigate. Through careful communication, they arranged a pickup point on the surface, away from the valley's entrance. Before leaving their sanctuary, the hybrid creatures presented them with a final gift: small crystal shards that would maintain their connection to the valley's consciousness even after they departed. They were now part of this evolution, chosen as ambassadors for a new form of life. "You realize," Reth said as they made their way to the surface, "this changes everything. The relationship between our species, our understanding of evolution itself." Alex nodded, feeling the crystal shard pulse warmly against his chest. "That's why we'll propose this entire sector be declared a protected zone. No colonization, no exploitation, just careful study and protection." The rescue ship landed as the twin suns set, casting rainbow refractions through the crystal formations. As they prepared to board, both Alex and Reth turned for one last look at the surface that had once seemed so hostile, but now felt like a guardian protecting a precious secret. Through their psychic link, they felt the valley's farewell, not a goodbye, but a promise. They were now part of something greater, the beginning of a new chapter in the galaxy's evolution. Their survival had proven that different species could not only coexist, but combine their strengths to create something entirely new. As the rescue ship lifted off, they carried with them not just memories, but a mission: to protect this sanctuary and prepare the galaxy for the next step in its evolutionary journey.